This is the top 100 of my gaming experiences over 40 years of play. Enjoy! Helldivers 2. An action-packed co-op game. It's impressive and very refreshing, and if it's not higher on the list, it's only because its gameplay loop is just a loop, which can get repetitive quickly. Mention to the game Alien Fireteam Elite. Homeworld. A real-time strategy game set in space, an RTS that adds the Z-axis, and with it as much complexity. Technically impressive for its time, it's still playable today 25 years later. Homeworld 3 was released in 2024, and if you like RTS games, I highly recommend checking it out. Blood. Blood has its gothic and horror atmosphere, rare for its time, and original weapons like voodoo dolls. It also represents pre-Quake FPS games like Power Slave, Wolfenstein, and Duke Nukem, but the best of them will have its own place in the ranking. Tomb Raider. It's hard to explain the phenomenon that Tomb Raider was. Its main character, Lara Croft, was absolutely everywhere. Exhausted, death finally killed off the character and the license with it. Years later, Bethesda successfully revived it. Special mention goes to its spiritual successor, the Uncharted games. The Trine games. Long before Trine, there was a game called Lost Vikings, where the player had to alternate between three characters and use their complementary skills to progress. The formula was modernized and added enchanting graphics. Warmly recommended, especially for younger players. Doki Doki Literature Club. This game tries to pass itself off as a gentle little visual novel before revealing its darker and more impactful content, all while being able to surprise with unique elements. This game should not be handed to younger players, but offers a truly original experience. Fortnite. The monumental hype surrounding this game made it the #1 on all platforms. Its qualities are obvious. Everything is clean and effective, from the artistic direction to gameplay, and the overall vibe is rather good-natured. A well-deserved success. The Super Monkey Ball games. Have you ever seen those old wooden games where you tilt a plate to guide a metal ball while avoiding holes? Monkey Ball is that, but in video game form. Note that it's infinitely superior to play it with motion gaming, for example on the Wii or the 3DS. The Batman Arkham games. The Arkham trilogy is a brilliant treasure of setting that envelops an efficient and varied gameplay. But this place pays tribute to all the games made for hardcore fans, but that still achieve to be appealing to everyone, so special mention to the Spider-Man games and Hogwarts Legacy. Ori and the Blind Forest. Like Trine, Ori capitalized on a recognized formula for its gameplay, platformers, and its level design, that of Metroidvania. It pushed these two principles to their maturity and dressed them in poetry and magnificent artistic direction, which never gets old. The Last of Us 1 and 2. I only made it through the prologue of Part 1, in other words, I didn't really get to see the game. I didn't understand the author's intention with his prologue to justify Joel's future motivations towards Ellie. It's legit, but it did not work on me. I'll try again, because I trust the community which considers it to be a masterpiece. The Talos Principle. This game may be an FPS in appearance, but it's mostly a puzzle game that starts slowly but will soon invite you to think more broadly than it seems. It has a respectable intellectual and philosophical dimension. In the same vein, special mention goes to the Turing test. World Cup. I'm pretty sure you didn't see this one coming. World Cup on Game Boy is just an homage to fun. This game skips realism and simulation for pure amusement, which shows a perfect understanding of what video games are. Mentions to NBA Jam and MLB Slugfest. Metro Exodus. The Metro games are based on literature, and that's evident in the quality of the narration. Add to that beautiful graphics and intelligent world design and you get a game with no flaws. Better still, it shines across almost all fronts. This game is for mature audiences only. Horizontal shooters. There are so many horizontal shooters like Gradius to Cinemora, including Cotton, Parodius, Thunder Force 900, and almost a million unknown Japanese games. The principle, though generally not varied, was really effective. On screen, my favorite R-Type is a major reference. Half-Life 1 and 2. Half-Life 1 and 2 are respectively ranked 28th and 16th best game of all time on Metacritic. Even their mods are cult and gave rise to Team Fortress and Counter-Strike. So why not higher on the list? Well, simply because I remember that I really liked them, but not really why I liked them. Monster Hunter 3. The Monster Hunter player must love being stuck in a loop between hunting monsters to get equipment and needing equipment to face even more powerful monsters. I don't think gamers need to play more than one Monster Hunter game in their life, but all should try one. The Last Guardian. The creature you see on screen is clearly a candidate for the title of Best NPC in video game history. Unlike others, which are often just dialogue boxes, it's so lively. It gives this already magnificent game a unique personality, especially since it's a 3D puzzle platformer, a rare genre. South Park: The Stick of Truth. When video games reached a visual level sufficient enough to copy the artistic direction of South Park, it was only a matter of time before we saw a true adaptation. And this one is perfect. Everything that makes South Park great is in the game, and that's all that matters. Unblock me. I'll briefly explain why this is on the list. When I'm at McDonald's and have 10 minutes to kill while waiting for my order, this little puzzle takes me up so much that when they bring my order, all I want to say is, wait, one more level. And that's the mark of good games. Alan Wake. The atmosphere is dark, horror seeps into psychology, and the gameplay centered around that flashlight is an extremely intelligent metaphor. Too bad Epic Games only saw in Alan Wake 2 a way to generate traffic for their store, because its identity is seductive. The Halo games. I played Halo Infinite for about 10 hours and stopped. Despite its qualities, thanks to grappling hook, the story didn't sweep me away. Fans of Halo then recommended that I try out the Master Chief Collection instead. I might do so one day because the universe is top-notch and its potential is obvious. Cruising the World and Cruising USA. These two games very similar take up the principle of the corridor racing style of Outrun and Chase HQ, but remove the obstacle course aspect of it and add fun elements like shortcuts or turbo. If you come across these cabinets, put in a couple coins. Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon has two main qualities, its undeniable visual qualities and its convincing and coherent world. In this ocean of open-world games, Horizon has managed to find its way and its personality. Like Metro, it's a game for which it's very difficult to find real flaws. Dishonored. This game truly has its own personality, due especially to its rare well-punk setting. It is short, but it has an interesting replay value similar to Hitman. A mention also goes to its distant cousin, Deathloop, which I also recommend. The Fable games. Each of these three games came with serious features and brought fresh air to the RPG universe. A lot of promises were made during the development of the Fable games, and many of them were not kept. But as one may say, aim for the stars and you'll reach the moon. Deus Ex. This game brought together the FPS gameplay of solo games with RPG elements, and it works perfectly. It brought a real change to the myths of all the generic FPS games that had come out in previous years. Its universe is rich and immersive, and takes place in a cyberpunk context. Shadow of the Colossus. The game is silent and empty, but that's a force both poetic and metaphorical. It gives considerable weight to encounters with bosses, which are crushingly charming and have become even more cult than those of God of War or Dark Souls. This work simply is a work of art. Slain Back from Hell. One day Castlevania and Dark Souls had a child, and to give it energy for the day they would put steroids in its bottle. If you want to play this game, know that it's a game that requires a samurai mindset, meaning it will reward precision but punish hesitation. Okami. A joke among Okami fans is that the best Zelda game isn't actually a Zelda game, it's Okami. This game has a unique Japanese flair, with its beautiful scenery and lore. Players can use a brush to interact with the game world, which is perfect for the Wii Remote or the Switch's touchscreen. Quake. Quake marked a turning point in the history of FPS games. Technically, it popularized 3D graphics for all game elements. Then it was a pioneer of online gaming, laying the groundwork for esports. And finally, its gameplay was way more dynamic. Quake is the son of Doom and the grandfather of Call of Duty. Portal 2. Valve has surpassed itself by pushing the concept of Portal 1 to its maximum. So as if that wasn't enough, the game is extremely well written, with plenty of humor, the gameplay is impeccable, and the level design better than ever. We reach excellence there. The Baldur's Gate games. When Baldur's Gate 3 won the Game of the Year, people told me you can like it even if you don't like turn-based combat, so I tried it, but it simply wouldn't do it for me. I admit being very jealous of those who liked it, because the game is extremely generous, and every Baldur's Gate game is highly rated. Dead Rising. Zombie invasion? No problem, you're in a shopping mall and there will be 1,000 ways to clear your way. The addition of a timer that counts down the time before your extraction gives rhythm to the decision. This place also honors zombie games in general, so special mentions to Days Gone and Dying Light. The Worms games. So that's a story of several worms who decide to take each other down, so they launch bananas and explosive sheep. Don't let this game pitch make you think it was made by a 5-year-old. It's one of the most effective party games I've ever played. Lemmings. I think I'll always remember my first time playing Lemmings. This game had me hooked. And I wasn't alone, since it had a huge success and durable sequels. It's a kind of real-time puzzle. You can plan your actions ahead, but once it starts, you need to have a good plan and execute it well. Battlefront 2. Not only can it be considered the best Star Wars flight sim, with special mention to the very retro TIE Fighter, but it's also the best Star Wars shooter game. The multiplayer mode especially is very effective. Special mention to one of its ancestors, Star Wars Jedi Knight. The Witcher 3. This game is beautiful, the gameplay is solid, and the universe is convincing and coherent. In fact, the only difference between me and those who would have put it in the first place is that they probably played it as teens and would love to slap Yennefer's butt when I just wanted to slap her face. The A Plague Tale games. One easily gets caught in the adventures of Amicia and Hugo. However, be warned, it's the plague. These two games smell like death, and they do so intentionally. It's the experience they offer, and sometimes they do it with no restraint. Death Stranding. This is the only Kojima game I've played, and therefore the only one on this list. I finished it in 44 hours spread over just 4 days. The more gaming experience you have, the greater the bonus on originality in evaluating the gaming experience, and here it was both creative and bold. The Metroidvania Castlevania games. There are so many good games in this family. The Metroid games aren't on the list because I did not play them, but thanks to them for having inspired Symphony of the Night, Aria of Sorrow, Order of Ecclesia, the very underrated Mirror of Fate, and all the others. Red Dead Redemption 2. I did not enjoy the beginning nor the end, but what was in between is simply the best open world ever created. Not the most fun nor the most enjoyable, but once combined everything that makes an open world game good, it's the best. The level of detail is still far ahead of everyone else today. BioShock games. Both with Rapture and Columbia, BioShock has managed to create an atmosphere that is its own thing. These games have personality and original identity. Whether you decide to play them like FPS action games or take time to delve into the themes, they are always a good experience. The Sims and Animal Crossing. How do I say? Let's just say I'm not particularly part of the target audience for these two games. The idea of removing the pool ladder while the sim is swimming does not really appeal to me. And for Animal Crossing, even a lockdown wouldn't do it. Sometimes there are just games that aren't made for you. Beyond Two Souls. I found the perfect context to play any Quantic Dreams game, when you want to share your love of video games with your novice girlfriend. You hold the controller but take decisions together. So girls, I've got Heavy Rain and Detroit Become Human, so send your resumes. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. At the time, a game that really respected its license was quite rare, so when we see that the devs loved it as much as we did and built the games like a true tribute, it warms our hearts. Moreover, they've managed to introduce very interesting gameplay variations, a plus for point-and-click games. The Flight Simulator games. Microsoft in video games doesn't start with Xbox. Flight Sim has been around since 1982, and it's always been a reference. In 42 years we've had 15 different versions, and the license has never missed its target. I don't know if you realize that today the map is the whole world. It's such a promise for the future. The Assassin's Creed games. A AAA game in my hometown with Unity? I'm in! I love climbing Notre Dame or attending a reception at the Gallery of Mirrors at Versailles Palace. Maybe the best episode of series that does not lack good ones. Special mention for the first Assassin's Creed, Black Flag Origins and Odyssey. EA Sports Grand Slam Tennis. Would you agree to say that the worst tennis game in motion gaming is better than the best tennis game played with a controller? The gameplay of this game will never age, and it allows for some exercise, especially if, like me, you play it with a weighted vest and dumbbells. Celeste. If you know Celeste, I see your big smile at realizing it's on the list. With its pixel art of first-class quality and perfect gameplay, this game is a mature and modern version of what a platformer can be after decades of level design experience. Sometimes difficult, Celeste is a true gamer experience. Theme Hospital. Yeah, it's a management game, but here we have a game with lots of humor, doctors who would rather be in Scrubs than Grey's Anatomy, and even the diseases are funny. Special mention to its ancestor Theme Park and other 3D ISO games like SimCity. Arkanoid. This is the brick breaker game. You'll have to be very precise and manage the bonuses well, which can be very fun like multiple. Do not judge its simple retro style. Arkanoid will test your gaming skills. The cherry on top is that it's easily found for free online. Guitar Hero and Rock Band. You two have pictured yourself on stage playing music for a large crowd. These games try to replicate this, and it's extremely fun, especially when you have a group of friends with whom to share roles, and one of them is quite bold enough to take the microphone and sing. Vertical shooters. Warning, we are entering the most hardcore style in video game history, and yet it's not even a bullet hell, which we salute as we pass on especially the Touhou saga. With Ikaruga you'll need to think very quickly, and skill is not an option. Special mention goes to the game Sylphid. The God of War games. When the first God of War was released, it was a knockout. The blend between Greek mythology and epic boss battles was new at the time. The only reason I did not really stick with the experience was the hyper-masculine aspect that I found sort of too much. F-Zero X. It's the future, everything goes very fast with many pilots on the track, the game is easy to play but difficult to master. F-Zero created such a faithful community that they have never stopped asking for new episodes, which Nintendo eventually did. Special mention to its competitor Wipeout. Life is Strange. Well, in terms of gameplay, it can be played with just one hand, but video games are also to tell stories, and the story of Life is Strange is so well written that you always want to know what happens next. With a structure like a TV show, we have 5 episodes in the same game, and therefore regular climaxes. The Heroes of Might and Magic games. A cult classic turn-based strategy series with a management dimension. Its charm also comes from battles that are played like a type of chess, but where each of the many units has its own abilities and intensity. Warning, the AI is not messing around and will show you how unoptimized your plan is. The Bomberman games. Simply one of the best party games of all time. Simple gameplay and quick pickup for 4-player battles. The series started in 1983 and still exists to this day with online mode. The game itself has not changed much over the episodes, which shows how effective it was from the start. Perfect Dark and GoldenEye. These 2 games are respectively the 8th and 18th best game of all time on Metacritic. While the visuals and controls have aged, they remain cult classics, whether by their solo modes or local multiplayer mode, which left unforgettable memories to an entire generation. Aladdin on Mega Drive. At a time when Disney still cared, their video game production gave us masterclass after masterclass. And the peak was Aladdin on Mega Drive. Having both animations worthy of an animated film and immediate control reactivity was a dream come true. This game was just perfect. House of the Dead Overkill. This game pretends to be brain dead, but brings incredible art direction. Some of the best cinematics in history in a delirium that Tarantino wouldn't renounce. Truly one of the biggest hidden gems on this list. This place is also dedicated to all rail shooters, so special mention to Vietra Cup on arcade. Might and Magic 4. It was my first experience with an open world game with an FPS view. The design was so different that the experience itself was transformed. A million things to do and we could do them in the order of our choice. Mention to its competitor, Ishar 3. The classic Castlevania games. Before Metroidvanias there were Castlevanias, and this episode on Game Boy succeeded perfectly in reproducing the gameplay of the episodes on the NES, but with a better overall balance. Special mentions go to the first Castlevania, Chronicles, Castlevania 4, and of course Rondo of Blood. Street Fighter 2. When I was a kid I would often go to England, and there was a ritual on the ferry crossing the channel. Going to beg for a couple coins from my parents so that I could play Street Fighter 2 on an arcade machine. There are only a few games across all genres that can claim to sit at its table. The Pokemon games. I never really played a Pokemon game except for Pokemon Go. It was not from my generation, and the catch them all slogan was too commercial for me, and the latter ones were dispensable. However, since they have become cult classic, I will try one, and with an open heart. Forza Horizon 5. This game is all about having fun. It gives you an avalanche of gifts constantly, and the global atmosphere is very light-hearted. It's a festival and nobody is there to take themselves seriously. The open world is top-notch and creating your own tracks wherever you want is also very pleasant. Resident Evil. The game that defined and popularized survival horror even though it did not invent the genre. This scene in which I thought I was safe in a corridor and some dogs break a window was my first jump scare in a video game. Resident Evil was a colossal leap forward and opened many doors. The Mass Effect trilogy. This is a science fiction series of video games. The setting is exceptional, choices are sometimes corny, the gameplay is flawless and players can make it vary or not depending on their equipment and abilities used. If you're a gamer who likes science fiction, this 3-episode story is a must play. Dune. Talking about sci-fi classics, here's Dune. Unlike Mass Effect, it's an adaptation that makes a point to respect both Frank Herbert's books and David Lynch's film, taking some visuals from them, especially for characters. You can classify it as a strategy game, but it's truly its own thing. The Run and Gun games. You can recognize Metal Slug games from a first glance, and for a good reason. All the episodes are very similar, and the early ones had an advance that was ridiculous compared to the rest of the industry. It's fun and it's intense. It's the ultimate representation of a run-and-gun genre. RTS games. These games really stand out. They are for pianists who can do 5 different things at the same time, while thinking fast and adapting to the situation. My personal favorite is the one on screen called Total Annihilation, but the most obvious mention of the day goes to the amazing StarCraft 2. The Tiger Woods PGA Tour games. A bit like Grand Slam tennis, but better. The many nights I spent with my friends working on my swing at St. Andrew's course in the game remain a memorable experience. The saga of Tiger Woods PGA Tour on the Wii is one of the best sports game series out there. Pinball FX3. If you've never played a real pinball, Pinball FX3 will seem too high on this list. If that's not the case, go ahead and try this out. The demo is free. Goodbye material constraints, this is a real pinball but with plenty of special effects. There are tables for every taste. Do not underestimate this game. Nier Automata. One day I saw an infographic claiming that there are 20 times more polygons in 2B's butt than in Kratos' face. Thankfully this game doesn't just have that going for it. The gameplay is on point, the writing is top notch, and the soundtrack is incredible. I highly recommend it. Clash of Clans. This is a game that proves a smartphone is a legitimate gaming platform. The game has mastered its platform, whether through perfect use of touch controls or sessions that can be very short. It's a game you can play for 30 years, and it even has an esports scene. World of Warcraft. When WoW was released, I was playing another MMO, but the hype was so incredible that I tried it out. When it comes to MMOs, you can't just form an opinion without playing it for at least 100 hours. I never got that far. The idea of paying for a subscription was a deal breaker for me. Flashback. The vibe of this game is immaculate. Smooth animations, pixel art at its best, a coherent science fiction universe like Blade Runner or Running Man, cinematic scene settings. This game is cult to the fingertips. If its gameplay seems rigid today, it has the advantage of being very precise and therefore never unfair. Noita. One of the least known games on the list, yet this game is an intergalactic slaughterhouse, in the sense that the game will kill you over and over. On average it takes about 100 attempts to get a victory. But there are 2 principles in the Noita community. If you achieve victory, you've just finished a sort of tutorial, and if you lose, no matter how, it's a skill issue. Tekken Tag Tournament. There's a difference between playing a versus game and mastering a versus game, and the two have nothing in common. To master one, you need to know all the moves of all the characters and everywhere they can be combined. This spot is therefore that of mastered versus games. For me, it's Tekken Tag Tournament on PS2. Sports Manager games. No gameplay in sports management games, but what a wealth of decisions that amateur fans dream of making. Transfers, talking to journalists, sending scouts to unearth future gems, setting up training sessions, and then winning major trophies with your town's team. The Tony Hawk games. The Tony Hawk episodes have strongly contributed to demonstrating the vast gap between the PlayStation 1 generation and the previous generation. It's so much fun. Being able to do these tricks that are stupidly hard in real life was just a dream come true for everyone who ever touched a board. Generation Zero. When released, this game was one of the most poorly reviewed games in video game history. However, for those who insisted, the memory will be that of fear-facing merciless machines in solo mode, and of teamwork to hunt them down in co-op multiplayer. I love this game so much that I finished it on PC, PlayStation and Xbox. The Doom games. This game changed everything. It was not the first FPS but became so cult that for a long time people said Doom-like instead of FPS. From the first one, Societal Phenomenon, to the acclaimed reboots, it's a complex and varied series. I recommend Doom 3, it's very underrated and very playable to this day. The Mario Kart series. It's especially the Wii episode that impressed me, with the Wiimote serving as a steering wheel, and the addition of motorcycles, which everyone used. Do I need to say more about this saga that sells consoles on its own? Special mention to Mario Kart on the SNES and the Egg Deluxe on Switch. The Gran Turismo games. Warning, Gran Turismo is not the festival that Forza Horizon is. Here you have to start by getting your driver's license and driving cars that are slower than Tony Hawk's skateboard. The latest episodes have reached a very good balance between realism and playability. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. I only played one Call of Duty, but what an experience. Farming noobs in hardcore mode, calling in helicopters and airstrikes on the loop, just top notch. It's the only game where I got kicked out of a server because seeing my score, the admin thought I was cheating. Souls games. I tried the 3 Dark Souls games and Bloodborne before dedicating myself more seriously to number 3. I advanced and beat a few bosses, and then I made a mistake of measuring how long it would take me to finish the game, and I stopped playing. Plus, after my first MMO, I swore to myself I would never farm again. Crusader of Senti. This isn't just a good game, it's an important one. The character is not the hero, because this world already has a hero. Our role is different, since the character can talk to monsters, and nothing here is black and white. It's an excellent first game if you want to introduce children to video games. The solo 3D Fallout games. New Vegas and Fallout 4 are excellent, but Fallout 3 had the advantage of being new. The lore with Voltec shelters and the vibe of the 50s, mixed with desolate lands infested with mutated creatures, all in a first-person shooter perspective, it's unique, and this license has a very strong personality. Morrowind. When I was first shown Morrowind, I saw everything I had always wanted to find in an RPG. 1,000 ways to develop your characters, a large and open map, a completely disorienting lore, and many other things. Long after, I played The Elder Scrolls Online, just to return to these lands. Sonic and Knuckles. Sonic games in 2D have been a winning formula since the first one, but to me Sonic and Knuckles represents the essence of this experience even today. It had the right duration, but getting the emeralds was a challenge, and one can only truly beat the game with them to unlock the last level. The Battlefield games. Whether it's futuristic Battlefield 2142, Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 or Bad Company 2, I've loved every moment of each episode I've played. From large maps with armored vehicles to more confined infantry maps, all forms of experience were great. Day of the Tentacle. While on the console front the SNES and Genesis were competing, the PC kept reminding us who was the boss. The golden age of LucasArts has given birth to countless masterpieces, and among them is Day of the Tentacle. A cartoon-inspired art direction and a lot of humor made this game an unforgettable memory. The FIFA games. To me it's FIFA, but it works with any sports game, like 2K. I've played too much of it, so let me remind you that there's a world out there with greenery and smooth birds, a world where you can rediscover that such games are just a drop in the ocean of video games and not the ocean itself. The 3D GTA games. GTA is a realistic open world that makes immersion even easier. There are only good episodes in the GTA 3D series, but I have a preference for episode 4 and its main character. If you're not from Europe, it serves as a good introduction to Serbian people. Everybody's Gone to Rapture. I lived this walking simulator as a supernatural experience. When I started playing the part, I was taken by chills, strong, and which did not stop until I turned off the game several hours later. The next day, second session, and as soon as I launched the game, the chills were back. End of play, end of chills. I still don't know what happened. Monkey Island 2. We talked about the golden age of LucasArts, and for me, this is its ultimate peak. This game is to me such a summit that I still have not played Monkey Island 1, although I've had it for years, out of fear of not recapturing the same level of experience. 3D Mario games. I know it's heresy for a gamer. Please understand that I grew up with Mario on the NES, and for me a 3D Mario game was the heresy. However, I'm perfectly aware that I'm wrong, and I keep an eye out for them at thrift stores, especially Mario 64 and both Mario Galaxy games. Cyberpunk 2077. When I played Starfield 3 years after Cyberpunk, I realized just how much the latter had spoiled me. Everything that came after seemed faded and poorly written. Cyberpunk is my only standout title for this generation, and my jaw is still sore. I chose to play it first on cloud gaming, and while the buggy launch was making the whole world angry, I could play it in full ultra with ray tracing and no bugs at all. So I got the real Cyberpunk experience. Some games have left me with little memories, but this one has left me with 1,000. As I finished the game, I took a piece of Night City with me. Puyo Puyo Tetris. Here we have a game that brings together the two best puzzle games of all time. Better than just bringing them together, it combines them. This game is both pure Tetris and pure Puyo Puyo, but it creates a magnificent example of the words 1 + 1 = 3, by offering a unique experience with several gameplay modes that mix the two. In fact, it's more like 1 + 1 = 5. That's the kind of game we have here. If you have a Switch, know that the demo is free, and the demo alone is already several games in one. Guild Wars 2. This game is so underrated. I've lost count of the number of times viewers who were used to other MMOs like World of Warcraft, The Elder Scrolls Online, or Final Fantasy XIV have told me how much they fell in love with Guild Wars 2. It's a game that respects players and their time. No farming, no excessive microtransactions, no power creep to force you to buy the latest expansions. You can play casually, but the game also rewards skill. And with just the base game for free, you can get hundreds of hours of gameplay. The 3D Zelda games. On Metacritic, Ocarina of Time is ranked number 1. In other words, it is, once all the community's opinions are aggregated, the best video game in history. That's why it represents this category ahead of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which are also cult classics. Each of these games has its own charm, with some being very unique, I think especially of Majora's Mask, but all of them are just great. Anyone can choose any of the 3D Zelda games and make it their favorite game without anyone finding anything wrong with that. The Civilization games. Who hasn't dreamed of rewriting the world's history in their own way? With Civilization, you can do just that. That's the great strength of this game. It appeals to everyone. All episodes are good, but I recommend Civilization 5 without modes or DLC, with partially customized gameplay using the largest Earth map. With this, you'll start a game that will last for weeks, and during those weeks, you won't think about anything else. That's the signature of this game. As long as the game is not finished, this game will live rent-free in your head. The 2D Super Mario games. You probably wonder why to save a princess you wouldn't send a knight but an Italian plumber with a mustache and a bit of a belly. Well, it's because we don't care. Mario's all about gameplay above all else, with controls that respond quickly in well-designed levels. From Super Mario Bros. To Mario Wonder, there hasn't been a single mistake. In my opinion, the ultimate 2D Mario game is Super Mario Maker 2, because even if it's where you'll find the worst levels in history, it's also where you'll find the best ones, and they allow for an experience that pushes beyond limits that Nintendo would never have crossed. The top-down Zelda games. As with Mario, the Zelda franchise has branched off into two separate lines, the 2D games and the 3D games. From the first Zelda game to Echoes of Wisdom, each one brought their own variation to the formula. To represent this slice of video game history, I chose an episode that likely surprised you. I did not take the one that started it all, nor did I take the most cult classic, A Link to the Past. Instead, I chose Link's Awakening. There are two games in my gaming journey that made me feel emotions for which I don't have a name. First, there's Link's Awakening, and the second game is ranked number 3. Final Fantasy X. Look at this cutscene. How could you not be completely captivated by the screen when you see this on a PS2? You know, they say appearance attracts but personality retains. And for Final Fantasy X, it's exactly this. This game has both. This third place is technically only for FF10. However, the opinions of the gaming community make me pay homage to the entirety of the saga and how it shares with the world a sensitivity that is so Japanese and yet so universal. Number 2, Guild Wars. I was a guildmaster in Guild Wars, and one day 2 members of the guild invited me to come spend the holidays at their place. We gathered the members living nearby and we had a barbecue. I wrote a small speech, but I did not give it as it would have been too formal. I'll give you a summary. I spent 15,000 hours with you. In 15,000 hours, one can do many things. One can earn 2 PhDs, build a thriving business, visit every country in the world, or write 10 books, but I would never have exchanged any of those things for the time I spent with you. Minecraft. You may have already heard the question, if you were stranded on a deserted island and had to choose only one game, which one would it be? Frankly, for me, the answer is Minecraft, and that's despite the fact that I've never played it. But I don't need to play it to understand that it's the ultimate sandbox. So why haven't I ever played it if I hold it in such high esteem? Well, I know very well what will happen if I put my finger on the wheel. Skyrim. This game has everything. An open world with magic under every step, phenomenal variety in builds and therefore gameplay, a thick and overwhelming lore like an encyclopedia, perfect music, cult quotes, and so many other things. I've played 3 Elder Scrolls games, Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim without counting the online. And while Skyrim is the maturity of a formula, it's its obvious peak. Without mode it would still be in top 5, but with them Skyrim joins the family of sandbox games with the infinite lifespan. Whatever idea you might have about adding or changing elements in Skyrim, there's probably already something similar among the existing 70,000 modes, and if not, you can always add it using the Creation Kit. Otherwise, there's also nearly 4,000 compilations. This game is just eternal. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please comment, like and subscribe. I hope this list has given you some ideas, and see you around.